What's up, magical people? Welcome back to Your Most Magical Life. I'm Mia Magic, and today we are talking about the absolutely insane, phenomenal, unbelievable history of dragons related to the church, how their saga, how their villainization and victimization has been shared with women and witches throughout history. Dragons are a metaphor for our mystical power. They're a metaphor for our gifts, for our strengths, for our divinity, our godliness. Dragons have represented our power and magic itself and spiritual prowess and mystical gifts and abilities, supernatural skills. Since time immemorial, that's why they're present in every major lineage and civilization and tradition. We have had so much of our magic covered up, stripped and taken away from us, systematically removed from our capacity. This video is actually part of a larger program called Slay Your Dragon, S-L-E-I-G-H, instead of slay. We're not here to kill them like the church did, which we're going to get so deep into in this video. But if you would like to join me, this is a way to work with the dragons, learn even deeper history and myths, and how to bring them into your life as guardian angels, as protectors, as warriors, as incredible treasure and wisdom keepers that will help you with abundance, with healing, and with so much more. So if you'd like to join us in this program, it is one of the least expensive offerings I've ever shared. It's a ritual series where you get a bunch of beautiful dragon content, and then you get to do 3 rituals: facing your fears, mining the treasure, and slaying the dragon. Again, slay like Santa slay, like soaring, riding the dragon, right? We have an absolutely amazing global community, and it is such a gift to share the wisdom and power of the dragons. I am so excited about all of this information. This is going to be really a deeper layer of understanding how and why we have been turned against the dragons, why our magic has been shamed, why there's all of these stories about how dragons are evil or what's wrong with us. Again, why dragons share this saga with women and witches. It's just absolutely crazy, some of these deeper historical facts that I have discovered and uncovered, and the truth that you can find when you read between the lines. So thank you so much for being here, because I am super excited to share this information, and everyone needs to know about this because it's wild. Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press right around the time when the Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches, was written, which was written by a man who accused a woman of witchcraft, had no evidence of foul play, and literally just used the argument of her sexual promiscuity. And when he got humiliated by the jury finding her not guilty, because there was no malfeasance, there was no foul play, he just was upset that she was having sex with someone, that's when he wrote this treatise, The Hammer of Witches, that became the second most published book after the Bible and was responsible for the killing of millions of women, the murder and torture of millions of women and people of all kinds who were different. The basis of this video is that I believe that dragons are real. They're present in every major ancient civilization all across the world. Every single pantheon, every mythology has legends of dragons in some way. Because flying creatures have hollow bones, they're very difficult to fossilize. And so they require specific mineral conditions in order to fossilize, which means that they may not have been fossilized. We may not just have a physical record. And many of these stories that I'm going to share, they talk about having burned the dragon. They burned the dragon after it was killed so that there were no remnants. There was no remains of the dragon. You could not see it. You would not know that it was here. One of the most interesting stories about that is Saint Romanus. And Saint Romanus was said to have killed a dragon that they burned every part of except for the head and neck. And then they put the head and neck upon the walls of a church. And that is where we get our gargoyles. Because gargouille, it was something, I don't speak French, but the French name of the dragon, like the dragon's name. All of these stories that I'm going to share with you were dragons who were known in specific areas. They had names, they had processions, they had all of these different stories, they had relationships with the villagers. And so that is where we get our gargoyles, is because one of these dragons had only its head and neck left, and they put it on a spike on a church. And look at the remains that we do have. Gargoyles on every Gothic church and building all over Europe. This is some crazy shit, y'all. All of the saints who are known to have slayed dragons, there's just something a little off and funny about the story. So St. George, who's the one that we know most commonly, is like, he's the one who killed the dragon, right? St. George is appreciated and venerated all over the world in different ways and forms. The dragon was actually added to his story. And there was a saint long before St. George, who was Greek, who was said to have been asked to do a pagan sacrifice, and he refused to do that. And that's what made him sainted. Now, what's interesting about all of this is that when you look at the time frames of these different saints and legends and stories, Rome originally was actually known for its tolerance and its integration with other deities and other religious beliefs. So of course, Rome was conquering, it was an empire, but they would build temples to the local gods. They would find ways to relate the local gods to their deities. How do we all find common ground here? And Rome was actually really known for honoring that's why Isis became a deity in the Roman mythology and pantheon, is because they honored the places where they would go. They would learn about the gods. They were actually very open-minded as polytheistic people. How did that change? Well, the ancient Jews were actually the first monotheists, and they were the ones who did the first killing of pagans. They would go in, this is like pre-Christianity, right? They would go in and start killing pagans, wiping out whole villages, genocide of other people. So crazy, right? Like we think of the Jews being the ones that have been genocide perpetrated against them, but they were doing it to others long, long ago. So they were wiping out entire pagan villages under the guise of monotheism. There is only one God, right? Which, like, you can understand the overarching theoretical and conceptual truth of that. There is just one God. We have many names for God, but it's not that it's one God, it's that God is all. God is everything. God is all of these deities, all of these names, all of the elements, all of the people, all of the places, everything, right? And so the ancient Jews, when Rome was trying to open themselves to continuously more pagan and, well, Rome was pagan, right? They're like polytheistic. So when Rome was opening themselves to further ideals and being tolerant of Christians who had been Jews, right? So Jesus was a Jew. The ancient Jews transitioned into Christianity. That was a new type of Judaism originally, even though that seems a little nonsensical. The monotheists, the one God, rather than the polytheists, the many gods, those went from being the Jews into the Christians. And the Christians just were a little less tolerant. So the first big conflict was between the Jews and the Roman Empire, when the Jews were like, no, we don't want to be integrated. We don't want to be part of this. We don't want to have anything to do with this. And it was known as like the Jewish Revolt, or the Jewish-Roman War and conflict. And this happened like in the very early current era. And progressively, as the Christians gained more and more power in Rome, they were the ones who were changing laws and ways of being. And all of these martyrs, these Christian saints, when you really look at their stories, they don't really make sense. And it's very obvious that the stories have been changed and the legends and the myths have been altered in order to fit a Christian paradigm, which we know has happened because the church has been doing that for thousands of years. There's a city called Metz that for centuries had a procession with their dragon. There are all these old artistic depictions, like that's where was a photograph. If you painted something, it was because that was what was our photographs. And there are all of these different pieces of art showing the procession with their local dragon. It was in fact the symbol of their city in Metz. There was said to be a dragon that was kept underneath the basements of the Vatican in Rome in order to be used as a murder device. They would hide it down in these dark dungeons, and then people were taken down there to be killed. They were sacrificed to the dragon. So if they wanted someone to disappear, they would just feed it to the dragon. It's like, sounds like something that the Vatican's been doing for quite a long time. It's very interesting to note the Catholic Church and the ancient Jews, they had been persecuted. Now, of course, in Judea, there was a lot of wealth and resources. But as the church was colonizing all across the globe, that costs a lot of money. They were spending a ton of money paying sailors, building ships, feeding people. Now, they're known for pillaging and plundering, raping and pillaging all over the world, right? But if dragons are said to have guarded hoards of treasure, and they're depicted with these massive troves of gems and jewels and gold, and all of these saints were sainted for killing dragons, what if all of the money in the Vatican, which is one of the wealthiest entities on earth, including countries, the Vatican is wealthier than some entire countries, what if they got their wealth and resources from the dragons? What if they took all of those treasure troves that the dragons were guarding and keeping safe for people, for true leaders? And that is how they funded their crusades and their genocide worldwide. Something to think about, right? Because all of these stories of the saints who killed dragons, they're celebrated. A real hero would never kill a dragon. It would learn to ride it. That's why we're here to slay the dragon. S-L-E-I-G-H, slay, not kill. There are some little stories like Saint Simeon, who was said to have helped a blinded dragon by just removing a piece of wood from its eye. So there are also stories where the dragons were not bad. They were not evil. The dragons were turned evil by the church. They were shifted into this horrible, beastly, negative thing. And these are all the times and the places in the stories where you can look and find and see what actually doesn't really make any sense. Like with the story of Saint George. He was said to have refused to make an offering to the pagan gods. But this is a time when Christianity was being forced upon people who had been pagan or polytheistic for centuries, for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. It had been our only way of living and being. So it doesn't make any sense for him to have refused to make a pagan offering, because no one was trying to, that would have been totally normal. Like everyone would have been doing pagan offerings. So of course the church changed the story. Oh, he refused to make a pagan offering, and so we sainted him. When what would have really happened was that he would have refused to make a Christian offering because he's pagan, and so he was killed. They made him a saint. Again, the dragon was added afterwards. But the story of the dragon with St. George is that the dragon was extorting money from the villagers, which is what the church has done. The tithings, the things that people were charged for in the early days of Christianity. If a relative died in a particularly gruesome way, you had to pay for them to go to heaven. If you did something bad, you had to pay to have your sins absolved. It was all about money. The church became the middleman between us and God, between us and the divine, and stole our sovereign, autonomous relationship from nature. That's why churches are designed to look like nature. That's why they have leaves and flowers and vines and gargoyles, is because we always worshiped in nature. That was our temple. It has always been our temple. There are stories of these priests in Rome who very Christian establishment, and they were augurs. And augurs, some of you know about augury. It's my practice for New Year's. It's the way that it originally was the way that we divine information from nature, the way that we receive the messages from the flocks of birds or the waves crashing or the winds blowing. And augurs were people who used that divination, who practiced augury, who listened to the signs and symbols from the gods in order to offer wisdom and offer guidance to us. And so those people being called Christian or priests, it doesn't make any sense, because they were the fortune tellers. They were the augurs. That's a pagan practice, reading the signs and the wisdom and information in nature. So when someone was an augur, you know that they were a pagan. And so them being called a priest, it doesn't really make any sense. There's all of the history that has been changed. And I love that William Wallace quote from Braveheart. History was written by those who have hanged heroes. So the last couple of saints and tidbits that I want to offer you guys that are so fascinating. One is Saint Margaret. And Saint Margaret has this story of being eaten by a dragon and then pulling out a cross and, emerging from the belly of the dragon. Now, part of the legends of dragons is that they are guardians of the womb. That's why they were present in these pagan mythologies, is because they helped protect the sacred divine creation power that is in our womb. And Margaret is another one who was said to have been unwilling to give up her Christian beliefs, but she's eaten by a dragon. It's all metaphorical. So she probably had a dragon or was working with a dragon, refused to give up the dragon, refused to give up her divine connection with her womb. Maybe she was, her name is Margaret, like Mary. Mar comes from the title of the priestesses in Egypt. That's why Mariana, Mother Mary, and Mary Magdalene, all of the women around Jesus, all were called Marys because it was a title in Egypt from the Isis sex magic lineage. So Saint Margaret was told to give up her Christian beliefs, but that wouldn't have made any sense because she wouldn't be being asked to give up Christian beliefs. She'd be being asked to give up pagan beliefs. The only people who were being persecuted during that time were the pagans by the Christians. It wasn't the other way around. And finally, one of the other most famous saints that we have is Saint Michael. And Saint Michael is said to have slayed a 7-headed dragon. Now, the 7 heads, 7 is a mystical number. It's why the number of days in the week. It's the number of the original planets in the sky that we can see in our solar system. And of course, it's the number of the 7 deadly sins. That's because each of the planets is associated with a deadly sin. It's actually the gifts or the blessings or the archetypal energy of the planet that became part of the 7 deadly sins, right? Our days of the week. In the English language, we've changed a lot of the names of the days. They don't make as much sense, but sun is Sunday, moon is moon day, Tuesday is named for Mars, Martes in Spanish, Mars, Wednesday, miércoles, Mercury, Thursday, we use the Norse, which is Thor, Friday, we use Freya. Freya in English is Friday, but Venus, Venerdì, Venuti, Viernes, all named for Venus, the Roman name for Freya, on Fridays. Saturn Day, these are the planets. Of course, Venus is lust, right? Each of the 7 deadly sins is associated with one of the planets. And that 7-headed dragon is representative of the ancient mysteries, the mythology, the mysticism. So it's very easy to see how this story was changed. It was just shifted. Okay, we turned all of this occult, all of the symbology, all of the wisdom. Y'all know, I'm sure many of you have read my book, Intuition. It's all about the law of correspondence. It's all about how much significance everything around us has and offers. And originally, one of these 7 deadly sins was actually like a type of depression or melancholy without doing anything about it. So some of these deadly sins were actually really just empowering ways to get us to live our lives to the fullest. And then they were switched and changed and turned even the planetary frequencies and archetypal energies against us. It's like so obvious when you look back and when you see and when you feel. Obviously, any of you who are watching this video, you love the dragons too. You get it. History has been written by those who hanged the heroes. No real hero would ever try to kill a dragon. They'd learn to ride it. That's what we're doing here. That's what my intention is. That's why I want to work with the dragons. That's why I want to share this information and wisdom with all of you. So the last little piece that I find really interesting is that Lucifer, the devil, there was no devil pre-Christianity. You went to the underworld. It was just part of life. It was back into the cosmic void in the womb. You would be reborn, right? Almost every major ancient civilization believed in reincarnation or returning in some way. You just went back to the place where we come from. And then you came back and it wasn't bad. There was no hell realms, right? Hell was actually one of the goddesses of the underworld. That's where the name comes from. So again, so much that has been changed. And this last piece is, I find really interesting because the deadliest of the 7 deadly sins was pride, because it was the opposite of humility. Now, many of you know, I've talked about this a lot, the origin, the true etymological origin of the word humility comes from humus, which is not like hummus. It's the humus of the forest floor. That is the black gold soil that arises simply from everything that falls away. The leaves, the fruits, the berries, the poop from the birds, all of that falls off the trees and creates the darkest, richest, most nutrient-dense soil called humus. That is where we get the word humility. What we're willing to let go of, what we're willing to alchemize, what falls away from us that becomes the compost that is the fuel and food for our future. So Lucifer was said to have refused to humble himself before God. He was too prideful because he desired glory for the gifts that God had bestowed upon him. Now, sign. Thank you. We all desire glory for the gifts that God bestows upon us. If God grants you a gift, and glory originally meant the manifestation of God's presence within a person, or radiance. That's what glory was. There's all these Christmas songs, right, about like the glory of his righteousness. Well, the glory is the manifestation of God's presence. We all know the most magnetic people, the most charismatic people, it's because you can feel their power, their magic, their connection to themselves, to their divine nature. We love that feeling. We love people like that. And so again, another story that has been changed. Lucifer, it means light. So he is this fallen angel that refused to bow down, to be obedient. He wanted to experience the manifestation of God's light within him, his own radiance. Y'all, like, trust me, when I'm sharing this information with y'all, I want to feel your receptivity of it. When you all send me comments and write me messages that say, oh my God, thank you so much, this changed my life, that's glory to me. That makes me feel like I am sharing the manifestation of God's presence within me. And so if God bestows gifts upon us, giving us, like I have, the gifts of speech and of memory, right? My Mercury's in Cancer. I just remember everything. It's like Dumbledore's pensieve, and I can share all of these facts and figures and wisdom with all of you. That's a gift that God has bestowed upon me. That is the manifestation of God's presence within me. What's wrong with that? It's not a sin. That's not bad. That's why God bestowed it upon me. So even that, we can see how the legend of the devil, the story of the devil, is so not true. It's just trying to get us to be enslaved and to get us to play small and to get us to be less than what God made us to be. So I hope that this video has served and supported you in remembering and recognizing your own power. This is why witches have been villainized and dragons share this saga with us. The church villainized and demonized the true power, the true magic. Imagine if we went around saying, kill all the doctors. The witches were the doctors. They were our healers. That would be absolutely insane now, and yet that is what has happened. And so we have an opportunity, all of us, to reclaim this magic and reclaim this wisdom. And so I certainly hope that you take every piece of information that I'm sharing here and use it as inspiration for you, as a metaphor for your power, for what has been taken away from us that is an opportunity for us all to reclaim. I hope that this video has inspired you to reconnect with your glory, the manifestation of divine presence within you, to learn how to slay the dragon, to ride all of these beautiful powers, because our fear is actually a power. When we learn to overcome it, when we learn to ride it, we are in charge of our lives again. And that is how we create change. That is how the world transforms. And that's what I'm here for. So thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video. I want this information spread far and wide. Come and join us in Slay Your Dragon. I would absolutely love to have you. The link is below. If you would like to experience a deeper relationship with dragons, dive into some absolutely epic, powerful visualizations and rituals to connect with your abundance, your mystical prowess and power. This is an incredible program, and it's so affordable for absolutely everyone. I wanted to make this accessible, so I can't wait to see you in there in our incredible dragon community. This information is not fucking around. This is an opportunity for all of us to look at all of the different ways where we have been hiding, playing small, pretending to be less, allowing the narrative of the patriarchy to enslave our minds and our power. No more. So thank you so much again for being here. I'm so grateful y'all are here. It is so important. It's so important for us all to know this. It's so important for us all to learn to slay the dragon. And I really hope that this has inspired you to look a little deeper, to read between the lines, and to search for truth, because that's what the dragons need from us. And that's what they're asking of us. And I genuinely believe that if we can do that, if we can reclaim these truths, these myths, this wisdom, we will change the world. I am Mia Magic. Thank you so much for allowing me the incredible honor and pleasure of welcoming you to your most magical life. I'm so excited to hear how this all lands for you.